na tutahakikisha kwamba wale ambao wameathirika wamepata ridhaa.
This is the worst accident that has occurred in the energy in the history of this country.
Tuhakikisha wanalipa gharama za hawa watu wametuacha, za wale wako hospitalini. Kwa hivyo lawama yangu mimi nawekelea pipeline na nataka wachukuliwe hatua za kisheria.
It is terrible. Terrible. Terrible.
Many quickly began accusing the government and called for the resignation of the Kenya Pipeline Company Managing Director, Mr. Celeste Kilinda. A pattern began to slowly emerge. Many people, including the victims, said the explosion was due to negligence by the Kenya Pipeline Company. Sinai residents said the leak was due to tampering by Kenya Pipeline workers who were trying to steal fuel for themselves.
Wao ni watu ni shirika pipeline liko na pesa mingi, liko na mabilioni ya pesa. Wangetafuta njia mwafaka za kuachilia hii mafuta chafu badala kuachilia mahali raia wanaishi. Hiyo ni kitu ambacho hatuwezi kubali sisi kama viongozi.
I can blame Kenya Pipeline because most of the times fuel ilikuwa ina flowing hapa, but within a second imepigwa dawa. But that day ilikuwa tu mafuta kabisa.
Kiraitu Murungi initially said that the Kenya Pipeline would compensate the victims. But later, the company, through its officials, stated it would not do so as it was not responsible.
We as KPC do not take responsibility for the fire, for instance. We do not take responsibility for the fire and for the incident, for the accident that happened after the spillage.
Efforts to reach the managing director for an interview proved to be fruitless, with company officials, including Kilinda, playing a catch-me-if-you-can game with us. They won. We could not get a hold of them. Our attempts to get to Kenya Pipeline's top management were met with outright hostility, and we were forcefully ejected from their premises.
There's no need to be rude, sir. Yes, you are. You're being rude. You're being rude.
Okay, I can now try to be rude. Please, get into the vehicle and get out.
Let's go. I'll call the guy later.
Please.
Kenya Pipeline has always maintained that the Sinai fire disaster was an accident caused by pressure on the pipeline. So other than the 5,000 shillings for relocation by government for those whose homes were burnt and a 60,000 shilling token to those who lost family members, nothing else has been done for those affected by the fire. In fact, life only got harder as they now have to live with injuries, scars, and without the little they had managed to acquire in life.
Hawajawahi kuongelesha watu hapa na wanaonekana hawana nia ya kuangalia vile kuliendelea. Hata wangeitana watu waone vile wako ama wao washuhudie waone hapa watu wamechomeka. Kuangalia tu na waende waone vile watafanya.
Mimi sijapata compensation yoyote. Kama kulikuwa na compensation ya hao, at that time nilikuwa hosi. Sasa mimi kukuja napata ni story.
All this, yet Kenya Pipeline generated revenues totaling to 8.2 billion shillings and managed a profit of 1.7 billion shillings. So who is responsible for this tragic accident, and could it have been avoided?
Well, I think everyone should carry their cross, and everyone should be held accountable for their own action on an action. Okay, but I think, for me, again, not wanting to get into the being tangled in these controversies, there are responsibilities, and there are people who are responsible, and people should be held accountable for their responsibilities. Each and every person. And no one is above the law in this country. No one should be above the law.
In a press statement, Mr. Kilinda said the Nairobi-Mombasa pipeline was immediately shut down upon detection of the spillage and the Nairobi terminal receiving station isolated. This horrific accident brought into sharp focus the squalid living conditions of the many Kenyans who live in such settlements. The government, City Hall, MPs, the Ministry of Energy and the Kenya Pipeline all know that it is illegal to construct houses above any pipeline. They all have the power to stop these illegal constructions. So why haven't they?
The area which was reserved for the pipeline, we have been trying to remove them, but unfortunately, we have not completely succeeded.
Why are there still people living in that area?
Lakini serikali yenyewe, kwa sababu sisi ni Wakenya kama wale wengine, hatukai hapa kwa sababu ya kupenda. Serikali yenyewe itufikirie hawa watu tunaweza kuwapeleka wapi.
Isn't it up to the state to put in place measures that essentially ensure that the right to housing for all Kenyans is safeguarded? The fire tragedy in Mukuru, Sinai puts in question the state's commitment to these principles.
We need to move beyond politics. It's about people's life, it's about decency, it's about people's health and people's well-being. And it's about people's education, kids, you know, those kids. If it's Changamwe, their lands elsewhere, okay?
Shouldn't any eviction exercise be preceded by a comprehensive resettlement strategy that should not leave the residents in a worse off state than they were before the tragedy?
Kwa nini sisi basi wataki hata kutulipa na tumeungua?
Mimi si gava sijaona usaidizi wa gava, sijaona.
Sasa wao wangeangalia kazi yao, hiyo ni shida yao, kwa sababu walifanya watu waumie bure, wakakuva, wengine wakachomeka, wakakuwa viwete, wengine hawajiwezi.
Maisha imekuwa ni ngumu haki, maisha ni ngumu hata. Mpaka naonanga saa hizi niko na 23 years. Nitafikisha 50 years kama nimeona mashida zinatoshanaje.
As you ponder that, remember this. Your fellow Kenyans, and specifically those who live in the slum in Changamwe, will go to sleep atop a ticking time bomb tonight. We wait and watch and hope that another Sinai tragedy never happens. Victims of the Sinai fire tragedy have now moved to court, seeking compensation from Kenya Pipeline Company, the City Council of Nairobi, and NEMA for negligence and failing to uphold their statutory duties. The question here is, will someone, anyone, ever take responsibility for the Sinai fire tragedy? For News at 8, I'm Kobe Kihara.